everyone. Welcome to Miami Beach Urban Studios live art talk with Valerie Patterson. Thank you all for coming this evening. My name is Colette Mello and I'll be moderating today's conversation with Dr. Valerie Patterson. This event is being recorded, so please take this opportunity to turn off your video if you do not want to participate in the recording. FIU Miami Beach Urban Studios, known as MBUS, is an incubator for the arts, architecture, design, and communication. I'd like to thank Miami Beach Department of Tourism and Office of Cultural Affairs for sponsoring these talks and for their continued support. The format of this art talk will start with Dr. Valerie Patterson giving a presentation about her work. Then we'll have a conversation which will be open to questions through the chat function. Dr. Valerie Patterson is a clinical associate professor in the public policy and administration at Florida International University, where she teaches courses that examine contemporary race and gender issues. She is affiliated faculty with FIU's African and African Diaspora Studies program and currently serves on its steering committee. She serves as affiliated faculty for FIU Center for Women's and Gender Studies. Her most recent publication in the journal Public Voices. From 2015 through 2018, she served as academic fellow and resident artist at Chroma Art Gallery in Coconut Grove, Florida. And she was just recently appointed to sit on FIU Equity and Action Initiative. She's here this evening to discuss how her professional life informs her creative practice. Hi, Dr. Patterson. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll turn over the screen to you now. Hi.
Hi, and thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my my art with your audience. So should I start?
Sure, go ahead and start. You can share the screen and start.
There. Okay, so today I titled my presentation "All Eyes on Me," in a sense of with my artwork, I'm always interested in having an opportunity for people to see my art, and I'm hoping that their attention is focused on my artwork. So this first series of designs, I've spent the last year or so really focused a lot on Toni Morrison with her untimely death, and she has figured prominently in my artwork in the past, and my artwork has evolved over the years, very interested in the use of textiles and fabrics, and also jewelry making, and using leather, for example. So the first doll on the left is a doll that I created several years ago using a leather face that allowed me to draw the image of the doll on the face. In the middle, I'm very drawn to, even as a person who for many years only wore black clothing, I'm very drawn to colors, and the image in the middle, it's mixed media dolls. It's also my jewelry designs, and Okoye from Black Panther is figured prominently in the cameo in the middle. And also there's a small cameo of Harriet Tubman. And then on the end is a piece that I created within this last several months that was a tribute to Toni Morrison. So I've incorporated, I've recently started printing my designs on the fabric, and I'm like really fascinated by the idea that you can actually print in the comfort of your home, usually on 8.5 by 11 fabric background. And so the image on the end is my use of a styrofoam head that I covered with um, a, a textile tissue paper. I added fabrics. The head wrap that the doll is wearing is a head wrap that I created myself because I have a huge fabric uh, collection. And the interesting thing is I've never learned to properly use a sewing machine. And so most of my sewing, when it is done, it's done by hand.
Do you have a sewing machine?
It's in storage.
Okay.
And I also have a toy sewing machine that sell in department stores for kids. And so I want to try to take it out and use it soon. So but mostly done by hand. This doll is a doll that I made several years ago as well. That she's wearing fabric that was uh, uh, brief briefly produced by a company called Astro, and the fabric was being sold in local some specialty fabric stores. But I've always been drawn to their fabric and their clothing, and I created her again with leather, some stamping of her face. But my initial attraction for this doll was that I was in the craft store and I saw the red yarn. And the red yarn was very attractive and interesting to me because I thought it looked like red locks. And I decided to create something with the red yarn. And so
And
she's
what are her dimensions?
she's probably like about 8.5 by 11 size. So the size of a standard sheet of paper, she was that size. And I don't believe she had arms because the she was made out of a piece of leather that I had in my home studio, and I sort of pieced her together.
When did you make her? Do you remember?
She was made, I would say, maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think she made the first or second exhibit that I had in the Green Library, but as I mentioned before, she was lost.
Oh, she was one of the ones that was lost.
She was one of the lost
Oh,
dolls.
yeah. Can you tell everyone, because you told me in private, I don't think they heard, if you want to go back to your first work that you, what happened to your,
Right. So over the years, you know, my work has sort of evolved, and I learned the doll making from my aunt, and but my aunt's dolls, her dolls are predominantly faceless, and so some of the early dolls that I created were made without faces. Over the years, I started experimenting and stamping the faces, and from the stamping of the faces, it evolved to me drawing faces. But this particular doll, her face was stamped, and she was a part of a group of dolls that I took to an exhibit, not to an exhibit, to a festival in Atlanta, Georgia for Juneteenth. And my dolls usually run very small. She was sort of mid range for my dolls, and I had maybe 10 or 12 that I had taken to this festival, and it was on a Saturday. Sunday evening, when I was home, when I was back at my friend's home in Atlanta, that something occurred to me. Something was missing, is the thought, and then I realized that the box that I had packed all of the dolls in was missing. And so I lost quite a few designs of dolls and even jewelry that I had created at that particular festival. And I grieved for a long time, and looked and searched online for the missing box for many years. But you know, I finally sort of moved beyond it. But she was in that group.
did you ever try to recreate any of them? Like you really were drawn to this one's hair. You said the fabric was the yarn was what really inspired you.
Right. So for me, I never do the same thing twice. And it really is sort of thinking about what it is that I want to pull together and what pieces. So the very fun part of the creative process for me is thinking about what I have in my studio that I can use. And sometimes it's something about that yarn, it's something about that particular bead, it's something about that fabric that triggers a design in my head, and then I start working on it and building it. And so that was the process that was involved. And I just, around her neck, she's wearing like a metal necklace, and what it was an earring that that I found in the supplies and included in her particular design. So this piece is on wood. It's wood with another specialty tissue paper that I ordered, and that I decided to add a stamped image of the young Harriet Tubman. And when a couple of years ago, when there was this collective national discussion of putting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, there were people who actually created stamps that you could use to stamp her face on your 20s. And so I was just, once I found out about this young image of Harriet Tubman, I've been drawn to it. And so I ordered one of those stamps, and I decided to stamp everything that I could with the image because I'm really drawn to it. And so I had that multicolored tissue paper, and I stamped her image on it. And then I decided to there's some embellishments of words that you can add to fabrics or paper or whatever. And so I had added that she is brave because I felt very strongly about her being brave and being a warrior. And along with that was a couple of years ago creating what I call a Sojourner Tubman Gill, which is my effort to collect my art and place it on a platform and calling it the Sojourner Tubman Gill because Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman figure very prominently in my artwork. And so this piece, it's designed to be added as to a piece of leather and worn as a necklace.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And again, especially the last year or so, you will see in my work. This is my studio space at home has paper, cards, stamps, embellishments, and so on the left is a collage that I put together for Juneteenth because again I wanted to celebrate Harriet Tubman, and also in the tag that says thinking of earlier days, that's Sojourner Truth at the top, Harriet Tubman at the bottom. And I wanted to again create this mixed media art with their images. On the right is them as well, stamped on either fabric, on cards, on tissue paper, and also including Ida B. Wells, who has been figuring prominently in my work most recently, because she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize posthumously. And for me, she has special significance because as a third grader at George Washington Carver Elementary School, my love of reading was stimulated by having to read biographies of people like Ida B. Wells and Phyllis Wheatley and George Washington Carver. So that's it. Again, one of my collage pieces.
I love that. So that's one collage pieces. That's one work, not two, right? Or
No,
is it?
actually, it's two. It's
It's
two.
two works.
It's two
Okay.
works. Yes.
And what are the dimensions of each one of those?
So this one on the left is probably like a 4x6, and on the right is like a 5x7, just a little larger piece. The actual collage is itself, the original is on 8.5x11. And what I try to do is um, the terminology crop. That's the terminology I was looking for. So I'll pull it up on my computer on my computer and then crop to different sizes. And so instead of using the entire 8.5x11 collage, I may crop a piece of it and either print it on fabric or print it, cut it out and take the 8.5x11 copy. Again, the inkjet printer figures very prominently because it allows you to do so many different things.
And then on the right-hand side, it looks like there's some type of textile behind some of the
Oh,
images.
The Juneteenth? Or
No,
no, oh,
one
that's on the right. Yeah, so that is actually paper. It's a kente paper. I found someone who actually prints kente designs on paper, and so and the colors are just fabulous. And what I do is then take the paper and then cut smaller images in I usually print contact size that has like about 30 images of the designs on one 8.5x11 sheet of paper, and then I cut and paste onto other paper. And here in the middle, you can't, that's Sojourner Truth, and she's actually printed on paper, but then attached to fabric. So that's the fabric piece as well.
And when did you make this work?
This work was made, let's see, I want to say within the last year.
Oh, okay. I love collage.
Me too.
One of my favorite.
And
mediums.
so my first foray into the world of art, I actually have a cousin, Ted Johnson, who was an artist, and I have cousins who both were. I have a cousin who went to Fashion Institute of Technology for design, and then I have a cousin who's no longer with us who helped raise me, who was a tailor. And so my family has artists. My aunt is the doll maker, but I took arts and crafts class in senior high school, and I did weaving, batiking, macrame, silk screening, and I was really drawn to that creative process. And I spent many days creating, especially the batiking was something that resonated in some medium that I was drawn to. But in that art class, I remember collaging, and collaging to me is so fascinating because, you know, especially as you start to layer and add textures, it just becomes much more rich, if you will.
Yes. It's fantastic.
Thank you. So in the middle, we have my cameo collection. There are people whose faces I am very drawn to, and usually because of their work. So people like Ella Baker, Prince, Frederick Douglass, Paul Robeson, Nina Simone, Claudia Jones, and I spend a lot of my time creating these cameos because I love the final product and how that as you add adhesive and as you add gel medium to the metal, the extra dimensions that develop as you work through that process. And so that, sort of the curing process, I'm fascinated about how when you add gel, depending on the colors that are that you print out and the paper that you print in your inkjet printers, the colors, copper adds a bluish tint, right, or a greenish tint. And sometimes I intentionally add lip color. So for Ella Baker here, I intentionally added red lipstick because I'm drawn to red lipstick, and people who you normally wouldn't see with women you normally wouldn't see wearing lipstick. For me, that the creativity of actually adding the color. So Ida B. Wells and adding the red to her lips, again, adds a different dimension.
I have a couple comments here. Panay Hudson is saying she loves your Sojourner Tubman Guild, would love to see more of that. And then she also says, these collages tell beautiful stories with every aspect, whether colors, materials, shapes having significance.
Great, thank you,
Alpine.
Yeah, so that's the sort of activist element of it, in the sense of why Harriet Tubman, why Ida B. Wells, why Ella Baker, why Fannie Lou Hamer, why Claudia Jones, because there may be people who are not familiar with them, and I'm hoping that as I duplicate their images and place them in portraiture, that people will stop and they will ask about them. They'll ask who they are, and then I'll have the opportunity to share their histories with others. And many times that that happens. And then sometimes people will compliment me if I'm wearing a cameo, especially the millennials, and I'll say, do you know who that is? And they'll say, of course, and they'll rattle it off. So I'm just so happy and thrilled that they know more than baby boomers might think that they do.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
can you talk about the first image you have with the beautiful headpiece?
Right. So another when I'm in Joann Fabrics and I see the styrofoam head, I am automatically thinking about how I can cover the head and what in fact I can do with the head, and hoping that at some point I will be able to take the head and make a life-size doll. And I've tried that, so this is a doll head that I made, again, taking the fabric from my fabric collection, both Dutch wax print, African fabric, and mud cloth, in sewing a head wrap, and then deciding to wrap my styrofoam head, add other embellishment for the eyes, and then also including another cameo of Ida B. Wells that she's wearing across her neck, and then place on a fabric that is a part of my collection, because I thought that the colors seemed to blend together. On the right is a head that I made, I think it was last summer, because I was scheduled to present at a film series that was being presented at the historic Hampton House. And one of the first films that debuted was a African-centered film series was on Fela Kuti. And so I started adding his image to some of my work. And again, I don't know if people can tell or not, but around her neck, she's wearing two of my favorite Jimi Hendrix pendants. So Jimi Hendrix figures very prominently in my life as a child of the 60s, 70s, and we listened to a lot of Hendrix growing up, and he still figures prominently in terms of my playlist. But I thought it would be great to create a couple of pendants with his image on them.
And also you have Prince in here.
Oh yeah, and Prince, right? So for Prince and I have a few more pieces, but Prince was a sort of a generational love. So my love of Prince was passed on to my children, my daughters, and his untimely death really was difficult for me to process. And so I've done a lot of Prince cameos and Prince bracelets and Prince necklaces. I put Prince in my playlist for probably a couple of months nonstop after his death. But again, I love the how that image, the gel media picks up the purple, which I think is very important. So
That's his color, yeah.
Yeah, it's his color, right? And so okay, so these pieces are all designed around the untimely murder of Trayvon Martin, and the search in the quest for justice for Trayvon and others who have died under similar circumstances. And with Trayvon's death, trying to process it, I created bracelets for people who asked. I had something that I wanted to wear, and when friends and others who saw the bracelets that I created, they also asked me to make bracelets for them. The doll in the middle is more recent manipulation of some other work that I have. And so the first Trayvon, one of the first Trayvon dolls that I completed was this one with and it depends on how the pedestal that I use. The dolls, some of the none of these dolls have legs, so they're on pedestals of different types, right? And so for this, the doll on the end here on the right, it's the Harriet Tubman face, but also incorporating an image of Trayvon on mud cloth, and then wrapped in authentic kente that I was able to find. The doll on the far left is again that same astro fabric that I'm drawn to, and she is maybe 2 to 3 feet tall, and I use the
so that's really big for you, right?
Right, yeah, it really is.
Small. Your works are pretty, like, what, 12 to 2 feet tall normally?
Something like that, or sometimes even smaller.
Okay.
And so, but she is pretty tall for me because she's on a pedestal, but she also is very heavy. So the bottom, the bottom part of her body is it's mounted on, it's fabric covering a wood plank and then stuffed with fiberfill. But because of the amount of fiberfill, she's really, really heavy. And but that's unusual for me to make a doll that size. And the doll in the middle was another stamped face that I added color. You know, I love coloring in eyes and lips, and then different embellishments that I had in the studio. So that again, for the activism part is really then bringing attention and awareness. And so a couple of years ago, as a part of the African and African Diaspora Studies program, Humanities Afternoon programming, the theme was, how do global Black lives matter? And trying to incorporate the adverse impact of state-sanctioned violence on Black bodies. And so I did this doll where I incorporated the image of Ayanna Stanley Jones, who died as a result of a botched raid on her grandmother's apartment by a SWAT team who were being filmed as a part of First 48, used a flash grenade to enter her house, and through the chaos of the entry, she was killed. She was shot and killed by the officer who came through. Ultimately, it turned out that the house that they were the apartment that they were looking for was not her apartment. It was the upstairs apartment, but just struck in by the fact that it was that she was 7. This is in 2010, 7 at the time, and so tried to incorporate her image and the image of other women who have Black women who've been lost, who've had their lives taken as a result of a state-sanctioned violence. So incorporating their images as well. You can see them on the bodice of the dress skirt of the doll.
I see that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so I have them, that's actually my computer in the background. You can see their images, and I've printed them out on fabric and placed it on the skirt. And I also have them included on this collage. This is a collage on canvas as well. So at the top, you see Sandra Bland, and her name is there on the right, and then the hashtag say her name, to again try to continue to focus the attention on the hypercriminalization of Black bodies, especially Black men, but also Black women, to ensure that, you know, their plight that is not lost in this. So so with Ayanna, I thought it was also important to create portraiture where she's included in a pearl necklace with a pendant of where her image is included, but also the image of Harriet Tubman and Ella Baker, who was a noted civil rights activist.
Wow.
And
That's
one of the
so
creators
wonderful.
of the Southern Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
This is very powerful. Was this exhibited? Was this work exhibited?
The doll, and I don't know if the canvas was exhibited, but the doll was exhibited as a part of the Humanities Afternoon programming in How Do Global Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you. So again, this is another example of some of my prints work, but on the left is I'm sort of proud of the doll. She's the doll at the top. She was actually collaged onto gift bag, and it was some work that I did as a result of the war in Iraq, right? And my desire to communicate the importance of bringing the troops home. And this was probably '05. Oh yeah, '05, and she ultimately ended up, her image ended up being the back cover of this special guest edited symposium on lessons learned from the war in Iraq. I was the guest editor of this journal, this a publication out of my professional association, American Society for Public Administration, the section on historic and artistic art and reflection and expression. So it publishes Public Voices. She became the back cover of that edition that was that guest edited edition that was published in 2006.
Can you talk about the work in the middle?
Okay, so thanks. So the work in the middle is again one of my styrofoam heads that I decided to add prints as the eyes to this styrofoam head. I was really drawn to the tissue paper because of the design and
Oh, so that's tissue paper. That's her face, or
the tissue paper is her face.
the skin. Okay.
And yeah, so that this the styrofoam head covered in that tissue paper design, and then I added the prints as 2 images of prints as the eyes, and then also these feathers. And I'm not sure where I found the feathers, but I collect all kinds of embellishments and have them sitting in my home studio, and many times it sort of comes together when I'm looking to complete a design. And so while my granddaughter didn't really appreciate the combination of the tissue paper and the kente that is the bodice here at the bottom, I love the contrast. And so when I was a resident artist at Chroma Gallery, someone actually came through the gallery, someone who was visiting from out of the country and wanted to purchase this piece, and I was like, but it's not really finished because it's just the sort of the head and the upper part of the body. And they said they didn't care, they just loved the way the combination came together. Unfortunately, we could not connect to complete the sale, which I wasn't disappointed by, because I really love this piece so much, and I love being able to go into my home studio and look at it.
I love it too. It's very striking. And then Elpena Hudson said she loves it too. The contrast.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
contrast I think are just like amazing, and then the textures with the feathers, and then that even with the Dutch wax print that's and it has other pieces on it as well that I've designed, but you can't see them. I usually, when I'm creating pins or I'm creating necklaces or I'm creating bracelets, what I like to do is dress the doll forms in all of the the different design. Then on the end was an image that I put together for my friend Duchess Harris out of Minnesota. She's a very strong Prince fan, and I thought for her birthday I would just send her, instead of a card, instead of posting emojis on Facebook, I would just post this image of Prince with happy birthday. So
I'm sure she loved it.
I hope so. And then so this is like one of my most recent Prince pieces. I've been building it on the left. I've been building it over time. uh, it's the the face is image I found online, and I thought that the face looked like Prince for whatever reason. And then the bodice, the stand is actually something that I found in the Goodwill, but I thought that it would be great for mixing fabrics and different kinds of textures and combinations. So there's the bodice is the Dutch wax print that has gold cowries. I have a Prince pendant around her neck, and then she has, you know, rosettes and other types of colors that I thought worked together well. And then on the right is another collage of that I've created for another humanities afternoon programming from maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where the theme was the Black Fantastic, and so I'm really drawn to Gil Scott-Heron, and because his work and his music sort of influenced me and my youth. Faith Ringgold is there at the bottom, my favorite artist.
Oh, I love her too.
Yeah, she's like one of my favorite artists
Mine too.
of all times. And so so want to be like her. I so want to study at her feet. And because she does all of those things, you know, that the quilting,
Mhm.
the painting,
Mhm.
the doll making, you know,
Yeah,
she's done it all.
she
Black Panther
did.
Party at the top, Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone. I put those images together and surrounded them in a mud cloth that I thought kind of tied everything together for me. And then
Wonderful.
finally,
Oh, these hands are wonderful.
so what I've been doing lately is taking my art designs and having them printed in the COVID-19 world, having them printed on masks and having them printed on gloves, so that on those rare occasions when I actually have to go out and about to the grocery store or to the pharmacy, that I can actually be wearing my art designs. One of my favorite masks has Harriet Tubman on it, and I feel like, you know, she's leading the way as the warrior, and she keeps me protected when I'm out and about. And again, hoping that, you know, someone will say, well, who is that on your mask? And then allow me another opportunity to interact and engage and share.
Wonderful. Yeah, these are really amazing. I love these. I would love to see your mask too.
Thank you. So that's actually the last piece of my group.
Okay.
Good
You
shot.
can, we can open it up for questions if you want to take away the screen, so we can open it up to questions if anyone has some questions. Yeah, somebody said they need a pair of the gloves.
Okay, so email me.
So they're really wonderful. We only have a few minutes. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh,
So one
thank
of the
you.
things I was interested in is, I know you mentioned to me that you learned how to make dolls from your aunt.
Yes, from my Aunt Carrie.
Your aunt. What were you doing before? Did you have a creative practice, or you were at Chrome Gallery? Do you want to talk a little bit about that and then how you started making dolls?
So at Chroma was a gallery that was opened in Coconut Grove, and you know, I grew up in Coconut Grove, and I knew the director, and he knew that I did art, and he asked me to participate as a scholar in residence. And from there, I became an artist in resident and had the opportunity to interact with people who I call the real artists. I really feel like and it's probably all psychology, but I enjoyed the opportunity to interact with people like Robert McKnight, who was a resident artist, and someone who I remembered as a teenager, because he and Denny Zulu Jean Tinney were some of the creative founders of the Black Arts Workshop. So back in the 70s, the Black Arts Workshop was on the corner of Grant and Douglas. I lived on Grant Avenue. And as teenagers, we would pass by, and one day they said, so, come in. So we went in, and they allowed us to, write memos and take notes, and they encouraged us to sort of interact with them and the Black artistic process. And so from there, it's and over time, they have grown as these major artists, and so I had the opportunity to come back to interacting with them, and so Robert McKnight, his work is phenomenal. He was a resident artist at Chromo. In terms of my learning art, I did the high school arts and crafts class. I then went on. My teachers in high school thought that I would either become possibly an artist or a political scientist. There's two different.
You're both, aren't you? You.
So I mean, I'm not a political scientist,
You're-
but I'm in public administration.
You're
So
in
it
public
seems
administration.
like, I pursued both paths. But I came back to the art, and when my kids were in elementary school, they would need gifts for their teachers, and so I started doing crafts. I would hand sew Victorian hearts for Mother's Day, and I'd make these individual gift baskets for their teachers. And it just so happened that my aunt, who had retired after 30 years of government service, she served in the military, Women's Army Corps. She served in, she worked for government for like 30 years, and she retired early. And then she started making stuffed animals by hand, and they looked so realistic. So our interests kind of converged at the same time. I went to visit her, and then I saw her doll making, and I was like, I want to do that. And so she taught me the doll making, and then we would have these discussions about what it was like for her growing up, sharecropping family, living what she called was a plantation in South Carolina, and being raised by her grandmother without very much to do. But what she did have was, her grandmother encouraged her, my great grandmother encouraged her to make dolls. And so she kind of picked up that skill, and as a part of her retirement started making dolls again. And her work grew to such an extent that she had a national following for her Black dolls and her Black Santas. And I was always interested and fascinated and wanting to do my own thing. So I started my own doll making. Over time, my doll making evolved. Her dolls don't have faces at all. My dolls started to have faces, either stamp faces, and then I would try to draw the faces. But what I found that was very interesting is that, all of the dolls whose faces I drew, they look just like me. So then I started looking at other doll artists, and I noticed that, their dolls look like them as well. And from the drawn faces to now images of people who I know, or people who I want to offer tributes to, adding those images. And then from the doll making to even moving into the jewelry making, the designing with beads, that consumed quite a bit of my time. I just really more collecting and then designing, and then having people being really interested in my work and having the opportunity to to exhibit. to now doing the mixed media. Really, now I'm focused more on ephemera, in the sense of taking the iconic historical the images of iconic historical Black women, and then trying to incorporate them in my art to, again, create an activism around people, making sure that people understand and know who they are, and acknowledge, the contributions that they've made.
Wonderful. That's great. I have one question here. Layers and textures seem to be really important in your art. Can you talk about ways in which you possibly also explore layers and textures in your academic work? Do you consider your artwork and academic work to be connected?
I do, in the sense that anyone who's had me as their professor knows that I am fond of what they call the multi-genre research project. So I want you to do like vlogs for your exams. I want you to incorporate different types of media. I want you to have some visual. I want you to have something audio. I want you to connect poetry if you can, and fiction. I use fiction a lot in my teaching, because fiction as popular culture, because I think that popular culture offers so many lessons for us to learn from, and I think it's much more interesting for my students when we look at film, for example, and then we connect the scholarly, the theoretical frameworks and conceptual frameworks from the academic world to what we see in popular culture, and what we see in, film and other types of media, to make sense, right? To reconcile what we know of. So I teach public administration, and I teach I focus a lot on bureaucratic organizations. So what we think we know about bureaucracy, based on what the academic literature argues, and reconciling that with what is portrayed in popular culture, right? And asking students to sort of think about how much, Parks and Recs, for example, influences our ideas of how parks and recreation departments actually are in the real world. And so, we spend a lot of time in the classroom exploring and debating these ideas, and thinking about how difficult or not those film portrayals make it for people who actually work in government organizations. So it's layered in that sense.
It's very interesting that you teach. I would love to take a class with you. It sounds like a really fun class that you would be able to blend all of that together.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we have a lot of fun, and thank you. We blend it all together, and we have. I think it's. I'm not saying that the academic and the scholarly is not important, but in the end, again, it's in professional practice, right? If I'm preparing the next generation of government managers, I think it's important to think about how you take that scholarly and apply it in the real world. And there are others who in my discipline, there are others who write about the use of film and poetry and other popular culture and literature.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, we are out of time, but that was a great way to end this talk about how your work and your creative practice inform each other. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation about your practice. I'm going to open it up real quick and let everybody say hello. I think I can do that. Let me see. I'm going to unmute everyone. Thank everyone for coming. If you'd like to say hello.
Woo, thank
I'm
you,
gonna offer
Valerie. That
a
was
poll
great.
for everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great job.
Thank
That was
you.
really great.
It was wonderful. Thank you
Thanks.
again, Dr. Patterson. And maybe next week we have another talk on Monday night. Again, we have Charo Aket here next week. So we hope to see you then. And we appreciate all of you coming today, enjoying our talk. And also just be respectful and wear your mask while you're outside. And maybe you'll see Dr. Patterson with her cool mask on.
I want to see
Great.
those.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Amazing. Amazing
Thank you,
work. Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you
night.
again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.